Ready to start? Are we?
Yep.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Community Church. A warm welcome to all of you joining us, mostly virtually. The cold probably drove people away, and maybe some are just still trying to wrestle with parking. But there's a few of you out there on the Zoom and on the YouTube, so we're going to get going.
Karen, it takes a second.
And it doesn't help that I'm right under the fan or the heating duct. It blew out my candle. As if there weren't enough complicated technical problems. We can't even figure out how to light a flame. There we go. Oh, now it's cooking with gas, or actually with wood fire from a candle. If I stood out in the rain night, my only light a candle, a million miles away, would you lay down your fire as I raised mine? Will you not kill again? And oh, when you're near me, oh my love, oh my joy, there's nothing ever to worry, oh my darling. This is a candle for unity, for strength. On this day, we light this candle in remembrance to too many trans people who have been murdered and who have been victims of incredible abuse over too many years. We hold them up on this day. We also hold up our friend Jessica Mink. Jessica is a trans person who attends Theodore Parker Unitarian Universalist Church in West Roxbury. Jessica is an avid bike rider and always at the farmer's market. Every Saturday I'm there selling coffee and crafts from El Salvador. Always has a kind word to say and good morning. And Jessica is now hospitalized in rehab after some sort of neurological thing. Jessica, we're thinking about you as we dedicate this to you and your speedy recovery. We want you at the farmer's market. We want you riding your bike all over the city as you always will want to do. Back with us. We also light this candle for a dear friend who is gone. Her name was Najma Naziat. As soon as we're done with this beginning little ceremony, I'm going to play you a little clip from Najma. Najma was the director of Boston Youth Organizing Project, who had our 5th floor for maybe 12 years, if I'm not mistaken. And she was just a vibrant young leader of mostly Black and brown kids, high school kids who would come. It was like an after-school leadership program, and it's Najma suffered a stroke, very massive stroke, and about 6 years ago, and she's no longer with us. Letta knew Najma well and probably will talk about her today. But Najma, we remember you and remember the vibrant work you did with activists, teaching high school students what activism was about, the walkouts, the strikes against the T, all these things that came out of our building, and we're just so proud of that tenant that we had here. Najma Naziat, we say presente, which means in Latin America, present. You are still with us and your flame burns bright. We're gonna, when I finish this song, play a little clip from Najma that we have. We had a beautiful thing on our 95th anniversary, which was at Roxbury Unitarian Church and had about 250 people present. And Noam Chomsky being the featured speaker, Najma did this wonderful energizer and whoop holler like you wouldn't believe. And it is not on our 95th anniversary YouTube, unfortunately, but I'm going to keep trying to find it and find that excerpt from that filmmaker so we can have that on our YouTube channel as well to remember Najma. And there will be, I'm sure, a memorial celebration of her life, and we will keep you posted on when that happens. Najma Naziat presente. Well, we were going to have some music that was about our subject this morning, but the music fell through, so you've got me. We have some anthems that we love to sing at Community Church, and this is one of them, and I think I'll do several of those anthems during the course of our meeting this morning. This one is written by my friend Aileen Vance from Santa Cruz, California. There is no freedom, a wise man said, let justice roll down, roll down. When the poor cry out for shelter and bread, let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Let it roll like a mighty stream. When fists rise up to strike a blow, let peace roll down, roll down. May the poets remind us of what we know. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Let it roll like a mighty stream. Brutality may threaten our daughters and sons. Let songs roll down, roll down. May our voices be heard above the guns. Let songs roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. And step by step and one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Let justice roll down, roll down. Let justice roll down, roll down. Let justice roll down, roll down. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Last night, the word came down about another horrible shooting at an LGBT nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where my aunt lives, and it just will never stop. Yes, it will. We will make it stop. I don't know if you can see this, but this is a beautiful poster that our wonderful Crystal Rollins Jackson, who is our publications manager, put together. Stop gun violence, 20,098 deaths and 38,000 injuries over the past year in the US. And it has a list. Salvador Ramos legally purchased 2 guns, Uvalde, Texas, May 24th, 2022, 21 dead. Peyton Gendron legally purchased the Bushmaster XM15 E2S, Buffalo, New York, May 14th, 2022, 10 dead. And it goes on, and it goes on. This is not okay, and we keep being reminded of it. And we need to act so this does not happen. And we think about violence in our own community. The shooting that just happened on my son's street, it's in Eggleston. We have to figure out how to change. We had an event here last night. There was quite a crowd. We still have lots of chairs, more than we have for this morning's meeting, still from last night. But the amazing news was that there were 3,000 people watching it on YouTube. And Charlie, who is our tech guru and also our board clerk, texted me this morning. And my only response was, "Holy shit." You're not supposed to say that in church, are you? I just did. So there. It was a very successful event. Scott Ritter was a speaker who gives us a different alternative narrative about Ukraine and NATO. Check out that video. It's right there on our YouTube channel this morning. It already has what, Amar, 30,000 or 26,000 views. This is somebody who's very popular on the YouTube. And so it was really wonderful. It was an honor to have him here. I was not present, but I heard about it definitely the next morning, which is right now. And I just want to thank Amar Ahmad and Charlie and Grady for putting that event together. We're just catching on to how to, in sort of a semi-stylish, maybe even a semi-professional way, put on a good hybrid event that has good sound and good picture and good YouTube and good everything. But it's a learning curve. But we really are getting there, and we're excited to be getting there. To that purpose, we have joined the Boston Neighborhood Network, which is in Eggleston Square as well. And we are going to be hopefully broadcasting some of our content on cable and on their radio station as well. Boston Neighborhood Network. And again, just the experience of working with Amar on this is really great. Amar has done a lot of webinar setting up and hosting at Mass Peace Action. And he is with us this morning back behind the controls. And it's good. It's really good to not have to do that myself and be the host and be sometimes a musician. You get to a point where it doesn't work. So anyway, I want to tell you a couple more things. This is related to the topic this morning, is that this building has been really an enormous resource for Boston's LGBT community. Our former tenant that just moved out about 8 months ago was called the Theater Offensive. They were here for 12 years and they are still vibrant and alive. They're moving into a new space pretty soon, a brand new building, brand new theater. And they graced our building for, again, 12 years or so. They were a wonderful staff, maybe about 10 people working up there, and they used our auditorium for their True Colors, which is their youth LGBT theater troupe, for rehearsals and performances as well. We really hold Theater Offensive up with just incredible pride that they were here. We have a new tenant. They're called the History Project. And they are, again, a wonderful gang. We've just kind of met them. They did a presentation last year in our season last year, and they archive and preserve and hold up Boston's LGBT history. And we're really looking forward to that because we are now 3 floors of archiving and preservation and history. The third floor has, and this leads perfectly to the next subject, it has the archives of Robert D'Attilio, whose books also fill our auditorium right now. These books eventually have to go somewhere else. The books that we're going to keep, which is a mountain of books, are on the 3rd floor, and they will be part of the Robert D'Attilio Library, which also holds an enormous amount of primary source material about the Sacco Vanzetti case, which Bob D'Attilio studied his whole life. Next Sunday, we're celebrating the 2nd anniversary of Bob's passing with an invitation, physical invitation, to have his friends and his relatives and all the people he knew from a lot of different parts of his life, which were just so many things he was interested in. He did both professionally and as an avocation. They will come together next week, and we have a whole bunch of his personal items as well as that of his wife, who was named Carol Ann Pastore. She was a ballet performer at Boston Ballet and then a ballet instructor for many years at Boston Conservatory, passed away about 12 years ago. And we had the both pleasure and the onus of cleaning out his house. And mostly the most treasured thing was the books and the Sacco and Vanzetti stuff, which good part of it will go to the Boston Public Library, but another big part of it will stay here. So that's next Sunday. It's called Remembering Bob D'Attilio, and it's a gathering of his friends and neighbors and family right here, Sunday at 11 a.m. I want to tell you about our gallery, which is displayed in this room. Come and see the paintings of Diane Esmond, French Impressionist painter, lived from 1910 to 1981 and painted very prolifically, left France in World War II and came to the United States, where her son Victor was just a toddler at that time. He is now a member of our church and active participant, and he has provided this legacy of paintings to be displayed here. And the paintings mostly are for sale. All proceeds, if you can believe this, to benefit community churches' major construction projects that are happening as we speak to this building, and that will keep on happening. Major overhaul of deferred maintenance. In fact, 70 years of deferred maintenance. That's how long we've owned this building and really had trouble affording to do really major work. So we're really looking forward to that. We're doing fundraising and grant writing to that purpose. So come on our weekday office hours are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and have a look at the beautiful paintings. I might walk around with my phone and show you the paintings on the Zoom so you can see for yourself, but it's not like being here present and seeing how beautiful they are and how nicely they grace and elegance our room here in Copley Square. Let's see. Now the big one. The big one will happen December 18th. And that is the presentation. I'm sorry if I'm getting too long-winded about these announcements, but it's just like very exciting things happening. We have an annual award that's called the Sacco Vanzetti Award, and we've been giving it for about almost 50 years. The first one who received it was in 1970. 1976, his name was William Kunstler, and you've heard of him. He was a really important lawyer, defended the Black Panthers and defended all kinds of underserved people and political prisoners, William Kunstler. And the most recent one last year was Julian Assange. His father and brother were here, and we presented the award to Julian. And also on the list is Leonard Peltier, who we celebrated a few weeks ago. Also Mumia Abu Jamal, and some recent ones are Medea Benjamin and Kathy Kelly, and the list goes on from there. We are giving our annual award on December 18th to the Holy Land Foundation 5. And it's amazing that most people say, who? And we're hoping to change that, because this is a case that resembles Sacco and Vanzetti almost to a T. It is immigrants who are in a time of hysteria, scapegoated and treated with injustice. The Holy Land Foundation 5 were Palestinian businessmen who were in the 90s, the founders of a foundation. The Holy Land Foundation in a very short time became the biggest Muslim charity in the United States, and their main target for in-kind aid was Palestinian kids in Gaza and the West Bank. They also did enormous local charity. When Oklahoma City happened in 1995 or 6, it was, they sent enormous aid and did a blood drive for Oklahoma City, the massacre, horrible moment in our history. Then September 11th, 2001 happened, and this government needed scapegoats and needed targets of vindictive revenge. And among those targets was the Holy Land Foundation, which was immediately closed. And then the FBI raided 5 families' homes, and in front of young kids and wives, arrested these men and tried them, and it was a mistrial, and tried them again, and found them with a different jury, found them guilty in a horrific, sorry excuse for justice. And they were sent to long prison terms in federal pens, and 3 of them are still 15 years later serving in federal penitentiaries. 2 of them are free. One of them will hopefully be with us. His name is Abdul Rahman Odeh. We will also be joined by some of the daughters of these men who suffered so much in these families, just incalculable, indescribable breakup of these families. We will also be joined by Miko Peled, who is an Israeli American, major, eloquent, cutting edge, knife sharp critic of the state of apartheid Israel. And he will join us to help us present not only to the Holy Land 5, but also to another defendant who suffered the same fate. His name is Sami Al-Aryan. And the same thing happened to him. He was a professor in Florida, And he was targeted because of his work with Palestinian charities for the same reason. Sami went through a similar travail and was eventually sentenced, but soon after that was deported and is now a professor in Istanbul, Turkey. We'll also have some wonderful music. David Rovics wrote an amazing song about the Holy Land Foundation case. And we will also be joined by Garth Hewitt, who wrote an incredibly beautiful song I just heard about Palestine. He will join us from England. David Rovics will join us from Australia. Sami Alarian will join us from Turkey. So it's this multi-continental experiment that we're trying, and we think that we have it within our technical grasp to pull this thing off. But it's a very exciting and a little bit challenging little set of logistics to bring all these people here and have an event. And it'll probably be right here in this room. We've been sort of looking for a bigger venue, but we're just not having luck finding just the right venue. It might show up, but December 18th, Sacco and Vanzetti Award to victims of the US War on Terror, the Holy Land Foundation, and Sami Alarian. We send our thoughts and prayers and respect to those families. Let's see, I'm gonna sing a song and then I'm gonna bring up our speaker, Letta Neely, for this morning. One more song from me. Also, here's another really cool thing is that we will have during holidays a massive crafts sale here at the church. I will bring Central American crafts and coffee, and there's a beautiful
I don't know. I didn't.
Store on Martha's Vineyard.
I didn't touch it.
Linda Cohen, who came here once, and she sells nothing but Palestinian products, and she is providing us with a whole bunch of products. So have your ears open for a major craft sale during holidays, during our office hours here, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This one is another anthem. I've been singing it like crazy. Jean Rowe is the author. She has been here before with her band and also by herself. I have this dream that someday this song will be sung at baseball games as a national anthem. Or maybe even if it were to replace Sweet Caroline, that would be fine too. Jean Rowe, Arise, it's called. Atlantic and Pacific flow, the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, the land between sustains us all to cherish her, our urgent call. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We reach these shores from distant lands. We came with hungry hearts and hands. Some came by force, and some by will, to the auction block and the darkened mill. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We died in your fields and your factories, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees, an old coat hanger in a room somewhere,
a trail of tears, an electric chair. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. And our great responsibility to be guardians of our liberty, till tyrants bend to the people's dreams and justice flows like a mighty stream. Once more, arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We lift our voices from the fire. I'd like to send a shout out to one more person. She is named Fantine Valjean. She is one of our members behind bars and is a transgendered person. And if we know anything, transgendered people behind bars are victims of the most horrible discrimination and violence, even worse than out in the real world, which is in the free world, which is horrible, as you know. And as we come to commemorate and celebrate and hope for a better world for people who aren't of the binary thing. I don't even know very well how to talk about this issue. But having this event, our decision to have this event and commemorate it on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, which is commemorated everywhere is Trans Remembrance Day. And it was started here in Boston after the murder of a trans person in Allston, my old neighborhood. Hopefully it's an invitation to try to learn. For me, it's like, I don't know how to talk about these things. I want to, for me, it was the beginning of a reach out to friends of mine of my same demographic who have kids who are non-binary. And it's like you usually kind of, there's these, you don't want to, broach that subject because it's personal, private. Some people don't want to talk about it. It's not a big deal. It's just who their child is and done. But it's like an invitation to a conversation. It's a subject that's controversy within our own congregation, and so let's talk about it. And the first person I thought to reach out to was Letta Neely, who has presented here before. What I loved about Letta was desire to start a new religion. That's what we want to do here. One that casts off, and this is what the effort has been for 103 years, to cast off some of the baggage that's just really horrible about the big established religions, and find a new world, and find it by talking about it, engaging in conversation and dialogue. Letta, I came to know as the teacher at the Mission Hill School while our son was there. And by the way, my partner and wife, Jennifer, is on the Zoom and says hello to all of you and to Letta as well. was hoping to be here physically, but decided to be home and lucky she had that choice and I didn't. But Letta Neely is just this amazing force of a school teacher. I don't know if Letta is still involved in education. She will tell us, or he will tell. I'm sorry about the pronoun thing. Will tell us more. And we're just glad that you were willing to come back and be with us today and celebrate and start a new religion. It starts right now. Folks, welcome Letta Neely. First.
Hello, family. How y'all doing?
Right up.
Okay, right over here. All right. I'm gonna pull this little table over here a little bit. I would love that. Yes. Okay. First and foremost, I want to say good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And it is a beautiful day because we are all here for it. And it is a sad day. The first thing I wanted to tell you about, because I heard you mention it, our comrade, Najma has passed away. She has returned to journey with our new ancestors. And I wanted to give you some information. Her memorial service is tomorrow. It is from 6 to 7 p.m. for a viewing and 7 to 8 for the service. And it'll be at Brady and Fallon Funeral Home. And then she will be buried on Tuesday morning at Mount Calvary Cemetery at 10 o'clock. I wanted to just remember to share that with everyone. I have some notes, and generally what happens is I have some notes and then I skew away from forward to the notes. So I want to start off with holding a moment of silence. Holding a moment of silence because on the eve of the Trans Day of Remembrance, we got a slew of new ancestors because 5 people were killed last night and more than 18 were injured at Club Q in Colorado Springs. So we can hold just a moment of silence for them.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my higher power makes my back go out when there is tragedy. And this morning I woke up and I couldn't walk. I had to hold myself still for a moment because some neighbors of ours are no longer here. And I can't begin to talk about how we can be or why we should be good neighbors without mentioning that, because it's like within an instant, they might not be here. Trans Day of Remembrance was started on behalf of Rita Hester. In 1998, she was killed. Before her, there was Chanel Pickett. After her, there was Jahira the Alto. I want to say, as I talk, please hold close to you, right? In that chrysalis of silence, that thing that is most intimate to you. And I want to ask you that just for these moments, if you put a box around that thing that is you, that is uncontainable, and I want you to hold that there. And I want you to scream inside that box and ask for help. And ask for someone to recognize you and see you and offer you a glass of water and offer you a hug and imagine that it is inaccessible for you to get to yourself. I want to tell you a little bit about your neighbors. All right. Your neighbors, these folks of us who transgress gender, some of us who identify as LGBTQ, some of us who do not. Imagine that we are sociable and beautiful butterflies. Imagine that people say there's never a dull moment when we're around. Imagine this neighbor who loves to sing and dance, a neighbor who is a fan of Megan Thee Stallion. Imagine a neighbor who is kind-hearted, who cares deeply about their friends, that is a loving soul, a neighbor who is always helpful and giving to their family and their friends. Imagine your neighbor who is active on social media, who has 6 dogs and 3 of them are Chihuahuas. Imagine your neighbor who is adopted, who has 6 siblings, your neighbor who was a model, or a neighbor who's experiencing a mental health crisis, a neighbor who is a performer, a neighbor who makes the best macaroni and cheese. Imagine your neighbor who keeps a scrapbook. Imagine your neighbor who sweeps the walk every morning. We often talk about how do we talk about LGBTQ folks? How do we talk about trans folks? We talk about them like they're our neighbors, right? Like they are our people, like they are us because they are. Imagine that thing of you that transgresses the binary, because surely there is something about you that does. I am commonly known as a Black lesbian, right? I call myself a dyke because that's the era that I'm from. I often get feel boxed in sometimes, right? Because I'm a dyke who likes to sew pillows, right? I am a lesbian who likes to cook. I do not know anything about cars, and yet I transgress gender just by the way I walk in the street. I woke up this morning afraid. I got the news about Club Q. I thought about the list and the list and the list of those of us who have gone before me, who are trans, who transgress gender. And I thought about the fact that my partner and I and our family, we just had the fortune, the luck to buy a house. And years ago, we could not have bought a house because of who we are, right? Whether it be that we were Black, or that we were women with our own income, or whether it be that I am a lesbian. And I was, in the process of buying the house, I was feeling so amazed at how far we have come in the world. And this morning I got scared because there are still people out there who don't know how to love their neighbor as thyself, who might just get a non-bright idea and might just be coupled up with the policies in the United States that say that you can own a gun or find a gun or have a gun or use a gun, and I might not be here just on the basis of the fact that I breathe in this body and I am outside the binary. And I don't exist in a box like none of us exist in a box, and I am actually your neighbor. I was reading, I used to teach, people don't know this about me. I worked at Mission Hill and I love Mission Hill. And I love children, right? And part of my story is having grown up in Indiana, which is the buckle of the Bible Belt in many ways, right? And we got chastised with the buckle of the Bible Belt in so many ways. And because I didn't walk in the world as a girl that other people could recognize as a quote unquote girl, I got told a lot of times that I was going to hell. And I got told a lot of times, please show up and come to this Bible study and do this and read these scriptures, etc. And yet and still I found some love in some of the things that are in the scripture, right? Some of the things that the Bible says or that are written in the Bible resonate with me so much, in fact, that for a short time, I ended up being a member of that organization called Campus Crusade for Christ. And I'll tell you a quick story. I became a member of Campus Crusade for Christ because, funny enough, the woman who was the Bible study leader at the time came into our dorm room on my very first day of college, and she took a can of hairspray and she spray painted Jesus' name on the wall and lit it up. And I thought that stuff was amazing, right? So they were like, "You want to join us?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool." In the course of that, I found a lot of really good and beautiful neighbors, right? And then, of course of that, there was a softball team that all of us who were Christian at the time, butches, definitely, played baseball or softball, rather. And it was pretty cool. And nobody, nobody bothered us in the context of that game. And yet, we were still told from the pulpit every single Sunday that we couldn't be all of ourselves. And yet I was in that school doing those things with the Campus Crusade folks, and they listened to Rush Limbaugh all the time. So you were assaulted that way. Or they told you that, you should not exist without naming your name, but you always felt called and seen. So I moved to Boston thinking I could be a little bit more of all of who I am, and I am, right? In the course of being with Campus Crusade for Christ, I taught Bible study for several years to little people. I've always loved little people. And so I kind of know, not as much as I used to, but I kind of know some of the wording in the scripture, in the Bible, back and forth, right? So I pulled some up for today, just for us to think about. In Matthew chapter 22, it says, "And second is like unto it," they talk about the commandments, "and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." And the question for me is, if we hate other people, how much do we love ourselves? And if a man say, "I love God," and hateth his brother, he is a liar. And the question for me is, how often are we lying to ourselves if we don't love our brethren, our sister, and our ren, right? And how can we love God who we have not seen if we can't see God in each other every day, in every moment? Beloved, if God so loved us, then we ought to love one another. John 4:11. 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3. "Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, and have not charity, then I become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal." And I think about how often we talk about, peace and justice for all, and then strike each other out based off of a simple thing, right? Because somebody doesn't fit our box. They don't encompass what we think is how to be. Think again about these neighbors, right? I work with young children right now with 8th graders, right? In one of my jobs is the associate director of an organization called Apprentice Learning. And so I have the opportunity to be in schools and see things that I never thought possible when I was growing up, right? I see girls and boys and gender fluid children, right? Walking through the halls, being their entire selves, kids holding hands, right, who are of the same gender, kids of different genders holding hands and not giving themselves a gender. I see things that we did not seem to have the opportunity to do out loud when I was a young person, which is name ourselves. And while that is incredibly, amazingly beautiful, and I worked hard, and some of you, all of us, right, breathing, worked hard to think these things come into fruition. I have to say that today I woke up and I knew that our neighbors, that I am and that you are still in danger of being able to not breathe. And that makes me sad. It used to make me angry, and the anger would overpower the sadness. And today, it just makes me sad right now. And I think about how is it that we can be better neighbors? What is it that we can do? The first thing for me is to love myself as much as I say I love my higher power. I want to share with you that the name of my higher power is infinite sustenance, which means that I have everything I need whenever I need it. And if you don't have a higher power or you don't have a nickname for your particular God or deities, you can always borrow infinite sustenance. And infinite sustenance for me would seem to suggest, right, that when I look at you, I see me and you see you in me, right? That there is divinity within all of us. And that if I do anything to transgress your divinity, then I transgress my own. Does that make sense? It says my John 3:18, right? First 1 John 3:18. My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. So if I take this idea that, my partner and I bought a house, and I take this idea that there's neighbors on the left and neighbors on the right, it would seem to suggest that the way that we are good neighbors is by getting to know each other, right? That I need to go next door and say hello to my neighbors because it's hard to kill and it is hard to delineate, to box somebody once they start introducing themselves, once they start getting to know each other, right? On some real things. I want to read you some names of some of our neighbors. We often forget the names as soon as the folks are gone. And I want to tell you about some of them. There's a long list. And I want you to imagine them filling up these seats here. And I want you to imagine them sitting next to you having a cup of coffee or tea or a croissant or whatever your favorite food is, right? Tiffany Banks, 25 years old. Samaj, 33 years old. Maya Regina Allen, 35 years old. Dee Dee Ricks, 33. AC Morrison, 30. Aaron Lynch, 26. Candy Reed, 29. Marcela Castro, 39. Hayden Davis, 28. Cherry Bush, 48. Keisha Chanel Geeter, 26. Martasia Richmond, 30. Kitty Monroe. Shawane Giselle Marie, 27. Brazil Johnson, 28. Shanalika Dior Hemingway, 30. Maddie Hoffman, 47. Sasha Mason, 45. Nedra, 50. Ray Muscat, 24. Fern Feather, 29. Ariana Mitchell, 17. The list goes on, and these are just the folks that have been named. What is it that we can do to care for one another so that these names continue to be remembered and we stop adding to names like we did last night? How seriously do you take your status as a neighbor? Would you harbor me? Would you harbor someone else? Would you let someone harbor your most sacred thing? When I think about the discoveries and that kids make about themselves and how they emerge to be, I watch in the schools sometimes, and I watch, and I'm talking to families, how often we accidentally on purpose, even sometimes, ask a child to step back in a box, right? and without remembering that the box has all these sides that have with no doors, right? And this child then becomes the thing around them that suggests that they don't need to exist. And they take on the tropes of the binary. And then they sometimes use drugs to feel free. And then they sometimes party in ways that are detrimental to them to feel free. And what if we simply had a world as neighbors that said there is no box for humanness, right? That says there is no jail, there is no construct that says that you cannot be you as you emerge, whatever that is, every single day. And what if that thing that I asked you to hold most sacred was allowed to be as free as it needs to be? What kind of world would we be in then? Another one of the jobs that I hold is at a place called the Design Gym. And in the Design Gym, there is a sign that says new atmospheres for new strategies for new atmospheres. And I truly believe that we need some new strategies because we definitely need a new atmosphere. We need an atmosphere where all of us can breathe. We need an atmosphere where those 5 people last night and those 18 folks injured and all of the folks last night that won't get named because it wasn't a big shooting somewhere else, right? Could be free today to breathe. We need an atmosphere where your children, your relatives, all the folks that may or may not be hiding that most sacred thing to them, whether it's their gender or their song or their sexuality or their desire to garden or sew, right? Like whatever it is that they're holding from you, it needs to be able to be a place where they can exist and tell you. And I think, Audre Lorde, and I'm paraphrasing her strongly, says, be afraid and do it anyway. What would happen if we had a world as neighbors where like it didn't matter if I was scared to tell you, but the space was still open for me to tell you, right? Or it didn't matter if we were afraid to be, but we knew that we had the possibility to be, right? I am always thinking about, and maybe it's because my dad and my mom raised me to treat every single person with respect, whether they were a quote unquote janitor or a CEO. But I'm always thinking about what that looks like in my world and in my life. Like how if we simply say hello to everyone and look them in the eyes if possible, we might have a different result in the world, right? How if we decided that all of the fuckery, excuse my language, could not have our name attached to it, right? So one way to be a good neighbor for me, and this might sound a little off the cuff, but is thinking about those neighbors that we have that aren't good neighbors, right? And divesting from them. So for instance, there is a Chick-fil-A down the street. I grew up on Chick-fil-A. They made some good chicken. And yet their policies suggest, or don't even suggest, their policies and where their money goes directly contributes to things that actively participate in my demise, right? And in those who transgress gender's demise. So I make a conscious decision every day to not eat there. And it's not a lot of my money, right? And it's not a lot of their bottom line, but it's something. And what if all of us pick those things that we know transgress humanity and divest from that so that we can invest in each other? Can't no one know that sunrise, how this day is going to end. Can't no one know said, if tomorrow will begin, can't no one know at sunrise how this day is going to end. Can't no one know at sunset if tomorrow will begin. If all we have is today, we have to think very carefully about how we choose to treat each other, about how we choose to walk in the world, about what we choose to hold sacred and to respect and to love and to nurture. I come to you today because there are children who are being told that they have no right to be all that they are. And I say to you, if there are a million different kinds of flowers and birds and planets unnamed as of yet, and million different kinds of personalities and things about you that can't be quantified, right? Then how dare us put anything in a binary? How dare us allow anyone else to put something in a this or that, an either or an or? Our children, and some of us, are like the cracks in the sidewalk where the plants come through. We are coming through anyway. We are existing anyway. And my hope for all of us is that we recognize the beauty of a dandelion, right? The beauty of those things that some folks would call weeds, but we know in the structure of the universe are simply nutrients, are simply necessary for the earth to be the earth, for the universe to be the universe, right? All of those things that are structured outside of a book that says that it's a thing, right? Or that it's the part of the canon. We are all part of the canon. And I don't like that word, right? But we are all part of this magnificent place that is, and every single thing of us is necessary. So I guess my ask is that that we recognize that together, that we say hello, that we harbor each other, that we stand up for each other and sit down together with each other, and that we simply let each other exist and breathe. Thank you very much.
Letta, thank you for that beautiful, inspiring address. It's just such a wonderful thing. We so frequently have just kind of, how do I say this? My first instinct was to try to find some experts on trans medicine or on trans health. They didn't pan out, and I'm glad they didn't pan out, because I just really needed the kind of inspiration that you offered us this morning. I want to, this is the moment when we do a little collection, and we're going to do a virtual collection. I will tell everybody out there that you can go to our website, which is communitychurchofboston.org. And there is a PayPal and a credit card option for you to help us do what it is that we do here. And also invite you to come down here on Wednesdays. We have an open house. We serve pupusas, which is El Salvador's delicacy that's brought to us by Luis Guzman, our cook, who has also prepared a luncheon for us today here, as he does every Sunday. Come on a Wednesday, and not only will you see our paintings on the wall, but you if you wanted to get a tour of the rest of the building, we have one floor of all our Sacco and Vanzetti materials, as well as a huge library that Bob Datilio left us. We have another floor that's all the History Project, LGBT archives and history. They just moved in, so they're all in a mess right now, but eventually that'll be a wonderful room to find out new things about. And then we have our fifth floor, which is the church's own archives, 103 years of doing good trouble in this place. We've actually, in the city of Boston, we've owned this building for 70 years, but it's all there, and it's kind of unkempt and a mess, and we're trying to find grants and volunteers to help us make order out of a lot of archives there. But we'd be glad to show you what it is that we have and what we do in this building, especially on Wednesdays for our open house luncheon at noon. I'm going to do one last song, and then you know what I want to do after the song is show a little clip of Najma, that I have on the computer to remember her by. Just a wonderful teacher and leader of young people, just as is Letta. So here's the song. It was not the one I planned, but it is about something Letta spoke of, which is 1 Corinthians 13. My friend Dylan Buston gave this treatment to that little passage of scripture. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. My thoughts and my understandings were a child's. Now that I am grown, I've set out on my own, and I put away my childish things. Except for that bear on the bed, the one by the pillow where I lay my head. It's been there to help me through, and I want to keep it with me too. Na 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 na. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. My thoughts and my understandings were a child's. Now that I am grown, I've set out on my own, and I put away my childish things. Except for those balls in the yard, the ones that I kicked and hit at really hard. They've been there to help me through, and I really want to keep them with me too. Na 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 na. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. My thoughts and my understandings were a child's. Now that I am grown, I've set out on my own, and I put away my childish things. Except for my trusted friends, the ones who taught me how to make amends. They've been there to help me through, and I really, really want to keep them with me too. Where is that perfect place of faith and charity and hope, where we may know God face to face, not dimly, not so dimly as through a telescope. And my understandings were a child's. Now that I am grown, I've set out on my own, and I put away my childish things. Except for infinite sustenance, the one that it's been there to help me through, and I really, really, really want to keep it with me too. Na, 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 na. I spoke as a child, my thoughts and my understanding were a child. Now that I am grown, I've set out on my own, and I put away my childish things. I put away my childish things. I put away my childish things. So darkly, face to face, so darkly, but face to face. Now we see it through a glass darkly, then shall we know it face to face. Now we see it through a glass darkly, then shall we know it face to face. Thanks. I changed one word from infinite sustenance. The original says, except for that inner flame, the sacred one that burns without a name. It's been there to help me through. I love that infinite sustenance. That really grabbed me and will be with me forever, I think. I'm going to move to my laptop and put on Najma, okay, folks? After that, maybe we'll have a little time for a conversation with Najma.
Oh. Start from the top. Yeah. No, not the top. Just there, right about there. Yeah.
So Nasha, can you tell us a little bit about your strategy for litigating campaigns, including who was your target and how you were able to move them to support your issue?
Thank you, Cynthia. I have a complicated job up here because we're not the same kind of group as everybody else. So actually where I really want to start quickly is you just remembering and imagining, as we're imagining what it felt like to be 15 years old, navigating a city, you're turning 16, navigating getting your permit, you're turning 17, navigating going to college. Just remember what that
understand
and how real it was for you and your natural networks of friends. Who the other people were who were affected by what you were affected by. This year, anybody got high school seniors who are graduating this year? You had a child that were a high school senior, and you know the craziness that starts happening right at this time. You're worried about summer jobs, you're worried about money. These are the young people. So imagine being 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old in the city of Boston. You had a job, you had extracurricular activities, you're trying to make your life more interesting. You don't just go home right after school. Teenagers don't do that. But when you go to get home on the train, your student pass doesn't work anymore because it is 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, the pass runs out. But again, you're also 14, 15, 16 years old. You don't have the same economy as your parents. Your parents might not have that much of an income. You don't have anybody to turn to. How do you get home? What do you do in that moment? That's the kind of organizing we do. So the grassroots work that we do is tapping into young people and their natural network. And when I say young people is a huge age range. Some of you all might look at me and go, "You young lady." But I really mean particularly middle school and high school students who aren't voters. And unfortunately, because they aren't voters, a lot of times they tend to be forgotten about, like on the MBTA. Anytime there's a fair hike, the last time a fair hike happened at the MBTA, high school students were forgotten about. So what young people start to do is they start to talk about it. They complain. You all know, you all who work with young people, you have young people in your lives, they get on the phone, they IM, they chat, and they complain about what's happening to them.
We're at 3:22. Is it working? All right, let me just keep playing this then, okay?
Thing is not being able to travel past 6 o'clock for a well-rounded teenager or a young person in the city of Allston and in the Cambridge, Somerville areas was a real problem. Young people got together. Imagine there's an organizer who comes to your school after school and they have pizza. They have pizza and they might have a couple of questions. What's making you angry? How do you change that? Who else does that affect? So those are the kind of things we teach basic organizing to young people in their schools and in their communities. And by teaching organizing, young people actually come up with solutions because we talk about issues. And even framing, talking with young people about framing an issue, identifying an issue and connecting it to need, creating a space for young people to have a critical analysis. Sometimes they walk out of a chapter meeting or a citywide meeting and go, wow, that was deeper than school. I learned it up today. But then, what if you learn something and then you get to apply? So what if somebody starts asking you all those questions and organizing? Somebody like me, they come with a fun t-shirt and you got pizza, so we kind of got it. You got your friends, then you really got it. You know, it's kind of after school, you can relax a little bit, have some pizza, you get to have this great discussion, you learn about things like issues, but then, because it's organizing, you get to do something. So that's the magic of our program. We're not a youth development group. We're not a drop-in center. We're an organizing group. We purely teach young people the tools to organize. Why organizing? Why young people? Because young people have networks, because they're affected, and there are too many young people at a grassroots level who are affected by things that could be changed administratively. Something that could be changed in your schools, guidance counselors. How many people in here believe all young people in a high school should see their guidance counselor in their senior year? Easy, breezy, easy. But in 2005, when we had taken up the guidance counselor campaign for the third time, this was one of the campaigns that was the hardest one to win. What happened in chapter meetings was what happened here. People agreed that all the stress and anxiety about moving on, a lot of it could have been eased for young people in a whole entire school by just having guidance counselors who can listen to you and help you understand what your next steps are. Young people can't go to college if people don't help them find financial aid, if they don't help them understand the application process, if you don't understand where to get a recommendation from, how important your extracurricular activities are. I don't know who went to college in this room, but I know it's important to have extracurricular activities on the way up to high school career. Grades aren't good enough anymore. And guess who else knows that? Young people. So they started to organize. Who did they organize? Themselves first. And they tried to figure out, using surveys, using creative actions. Young people actually in our organization, we don't wait until this part of the season to get out. We will get out right in the fall. So the kickoff for 2005 year was standing outside of the State House with big red hearts and big signs that say I care and I don't, a number of issues that young people identified. And that's how in that fall, we decided that the guidance council issue was an important issue. We had adults, young people, I mean, it's hard to and people holding up big colorful signs and lots of young people with the same t-shirts on, asking and doing surveys. So we don't wait to mobilize people. We try to attract people every single year at the beginning of the school year to hear from young people, what are your issues? They then identify them, and then they begin to go after the target. I just want to say one thing about the target. For both of these campaigns, the targets were bureaucratic administrators. Policy can be made at a lot of levels. Sometimes the levels that count are the levels of the actual living conditions. And for young people in the schools, a lot of times the target is a principal or the people of the central office and or the school committee. And for both of these campaigns, the targets were the general managers and the central guidance counselor office. So those are the campaigns that we win, and a lot of times that's at the level we win it by, and that's how we win it.
Presente.
Oh, I need to turn off that share, okay? Oh, I got it.
You got it?
How did you get it? You may not. Because your host.
Najma Naziat presente. I couldn't believe watching that and remembering how much of a youth feel Najma brought to this building. And all the young kids that would come in here from various different high schools nearby and some far away because we're so centrally located. And also the way that Najma challenged us about our own racism. We are mostly, like it or not, a white institution and come from privilege. And Najma challenged that in a very direct way and really challenged us to think and act, hopefully, in a different way. And it's just the beginning of a journey of understanding, not only for this church, but for this country. And so we will post on our Facebook page the information about the viewing and the memorial that will happen tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Najma suffered a horrible, massive stroke about 7 years ago, I believe it was, and was disabled, cared for by her mother, who's named Kai, I believe. And so we remember her. Let's see, Amar and I will together officiate the Q&A. If there's anyone who would like to say hello to Letta or ask a question, this is your moment. I saw one hand up from Charlie and Karen, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, this is Karen. I live in Brighton. I just want to commend the speaker this morning. I wish you were a reverend, so maybe Community Church could hire you. You speak so eloquently.
Are we frozen?
Can
What's
you
that?
hear me?
Oh, you.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello.
I love it.
Hi.
Dan, you can
Hello?
unmute. You have a question?
Well, first of all, like Karen, I could hear you back there. And I think,
Can you hear
Karen,
me
you want
now?
to finish? Go ahead, Karen, you finish and I'll come back after you.
They say they can't hear me at the church.
Uh-oh.
Did I see that Charlie and Karen had their hand up as well?
Yeah, you want,
Really
Dean, let
good.
Jen go
It's
first.
okay over there.
I'll put myself on hold and mute. And then when Karen's done. Can you hear me, Dean?
Dan, I hear you just fine, but evidently the church doesn't hear us.
Dean, can you hear me? This is Leonard speaking. I don't think the church can hear anybody. We had this problem on June 12th when Michael Dukakis was on speaking and we couldn't hear him. Everybody who on the call could hear him, but the people in the church couldn't hear him. There's something wrong with the system at the church that you can't hear us, Dean.
Or we can ask people to put a question or a comment in the chat. Yeah, we're having a little issue with the sound here in the auditorium. If you'd like to put your question or comment in the chat, we can.
He did not, Amar is running it.
Well, he told Amar to do it.
Okay, go ahead, Charlie or Karen.
Okay, Karen.
We hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Sorry about the technical issues. I just want to comment your speaker this morning, giving a beautiful presentation. And if it were up to me, I would ask the board to hire you for our congregational leader.
Thank you.
But I also have
a job.
a job, exactly. I want to remind folks the Sacco and Vanzetti Society has a commemorative meeting at 2:00 at the Lutheran Church. I know it's not the CCB, but it's the Lutheran Church in East Boston. And it's in commemoration of the 100th year of the murder of Ricardo Flores Megon. And there'll be presentations, interpretation from Spanish to English and back. And I encourage folks to see if they can attend right after this. But I actually have a quick question. I would like to know what your opinion is of folks like billboardchris.com, and is what he's doing hurtful to young people and anyone who identifies with trans.
Can you give me a little background and jog my memory?
On Billboard Chris?
Yes. I
Well,
think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not quite sure.
yeah, he's originally from Canada and he wears a billboard. And it's against transgender youth.
Yes. He's dangerous.
Thank you.
He is dangerous. And not so much, like there's the policies that get created, but it's also more like one-to-one dangerous, like a young person or an older person or just a human being that is grappling with how to be and believing that the world has decided that they can't be whole, right? And is already walking around in parts to see a billboard on a human being, like telling them basically you are illegal, immoral, not a part of this world, which is a lie. The one-to-one damage is significant. There's to counteract that, there's a slightly different. There's a guy that walks around in Canada, I believe, and he started off like he was just going to the market and he would bring fruit back and he would have like these giant pieces, like I guess he had a giant eggplant one day and people would just smile. And so then he built and made this huge carrot that he just walks around with so that people smile all day at him. And I wonder, we talk about new strategies for new atmospheres. It seems like kind of simple, but like, what if there was another person who had as much time as the billboard dude, right? Who wore a billboard that said something opposite and stood either, around the way or just anywhere, and to counteract that type of damage, because we all have a voice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I now have the posters that I forgot to mention. Tonight's event, sponsored by the Sacco Vanzetti Commemoration Society. And it is, I'll read it in Spanish. Ricardo Flores Magón, la vida de un revolucionario mexicano. El programa será principalmente en español, con interpretación al inglés. Todas las edades son bienvenidas. Habrán materiales artísticas disponibles. El sitio no es accesible para las sillas de ruedas, etc. And here's in English, the sponsors of the Sacco Vanzetti Commemoration Society: Black Rose Anarchist Federation, Boston May Day Coalition, Community Church of Boston, And this is this afternoon, Our Savior's Lutheran Church, 28 Paris Street in East Boston. And there's information about it on our Facebook page, as well as on the website of the Sacco and Vanzetti Commemoration Society. I'm looking forward to learning more about Ricardo Flores Magón. Sure.
Dean, may I say something? I've had a hand raised. Or Danny, do you want to speak first?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, okay. First, I want to say thank you. You were a great speaker today.
Thank you.
Your message rung out. And my question has to do with what Karen just said, because we have a member of this church here.
Dan, I would like to ask you not to use this as a forum for criticism between members of the church. This is a non-sectarian church, and I don't appreciate that you're bringing this up at this moment, and this is not the moment to do that.
Okay,
We've heard this before.
It is a problem.
And we're dealing with it and we are a non-sectarian, non-creedal church, and you don't chastise people for their beliefs, and you don't have a loyalty oath that has to be said. Yes, you do. Was this person propagating harm or not?
Okay.
May I ask a civil question?
Yes, go ahead, Dan. Oh, go Leonard.
Yes, thank you.
This is Leonard Lerman from New York.
From New York.
Thanks
I was
for
looking
joining
forward
us.
to this lecture because I have a colleague and a former student who are both going through transition. I mean, I guess you call them trans people because they're not yet transitioned from female to male in one case and from male to female in another case. And I'm very sympathetic to them. The problem that I have, and I think it's a problem that many thoughtful people have, and I'd like maybe it to be addressed, and that is pronominal. If a person does not identify as he or she, the Russian language, the English language have a pronoun for that, which is it. And I've heard that used in Russian, pejoratively probably, although not intentionally. It's not recommended to be used in English because it most likely is construable as pejorative. But the use of the word they or them or their is problematic grammatically. You say they is. I mean, this is a semantic problem, which I think is, however, part of the trans experience, part of the experience of those who want to be friendly and not only tolerant, but understanding and welcoming and loving to those who are in transition. So I wondered if you have thought about that and might want to address that question.
I have thought about it.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. I've thought about it because there's a couple of different ways that I think about it and about answering that. The first one is that the English language, like all languages, is always evolving, right? And it would be disrespectful of me to shortchange the evolution of language. Every year, Webster comes out with a new word of the year or a new way of saying a thing. And if in that context, we have a group of beings, forward-thinking beings who have decided that one way of naming themselves is with they or them, right? And so what does it harm me to utilize that, right? What structure does it break down or dismantle if I use that? The other way of answering is that I think about it is that there is no harm and no foul in simply asking another person, like, how would you like to be referred, right? Would you prefer he, him, they, their, z, which is also another pronoun that's being used. Would you prefer something totally out of, like not even in that sphere? And then using that as a way of talking about that person going forward.
Do you think that
Another thing
promoting the Z that you just mentioned is a good idea?
I don't think any of them are good or bad ideas, actually. I mean, actually, that's not true. I think it might be a bad idea. But I think actually I know it is a bad idea for me. But I think Z is fine, but I also think that, like I said, language is evolving. And, I generally go towards the folks that are in the circles that I want to be, amplifying their truth and take that language from there, right? So for the same thing with folks who are using in the beginning of probably COVID early times, right? Folks started using Latin X. Well, then that language got evolved into Latin A, right? Because the X isn't a part of the English language. I mean, isn't a part of the of that. And I might be totally over speaking, but folks started saying Latin A, meaning E with a tilde, right? And so if language is continually evolving, then we get to continually evolve with it. I hope that helps.
We have a new member of our audience who would like to either have a question or have a comment. Thank you for being with us.
Hello. Oh, is this good? Okay. So hi, I'm Kat. It's my first time here. I was kind of taken aback by the fact that by the question that was asked, because it strikes me as of very limited importance, and it strikes me as something that is very much in line with the sort of petty quibbling that people who, whatever their intention for doing that, but they ask these silly questions and they take up a lot of time, and the questions mainly cast doubt about what's important. It casts doubt about what the truth is by presenting, some minor question as super important, by presenting a question that has some already well understood and discussed through assumptions that I was just taken aback that such a question was even allowed to be aired, as this contributes to essentially confusion in the public about what the hell trans things even are and what's important, and that causes a lot of harm to the trans community. So I'm kind of upset about that.
So I want to, one, accept and address that you are upset about it. And I also want to, I want to say a couple of things. One, the name of the conversation today is how do we care for our neighbors, right? Or part of that conversation. And for me, how can I say this? In some context, in some safe spaces, in some spaces where we're seeking to be nurturing to each other, I find that any question can be on the table, because if our hearts are right, if our intent is good, right, then I want to be asked the question, right? Then I want to know, if someone wants to know how to refer, for me, my pronouns are any pronoun that you can think of. If you want to call me atmospheric, right, I'm cool with that, right? If you want to call me they, them, she, her, all of those things, as long as it's respectful. And I appreciate when someone asks me. I think that these conversations are considered to be, as you say, petty in some arenas, and they don't get to the entire context of our lives and our living and our death. Sometimes when taken out of an area, out of a specific conversation like this, But in general, for me, I appreciated the question because it seemed like the person really wanted to know how to best support their colleagues, right? And if in a world where those colleagues are walking around being misgendered and or called its, right? Then I appreciate the fact that we all want to figure out a way to call each other by the names that we want to be called.
Oh.
I just wanted to, I appreciate that sentiment, and I don't think there's really a case to be made for a person asking such a question for that being in any way other than what the effects of that are, is being the seeding doubt and confusion. Like, intention might be pure. I think that those types of questions, given the fact that they have a tendency to cause harm to the trans community, in order to limit that harm, such questions should be discussed in more private contexts where there are fewer people witnessing, and thereby fewer people getting the false impression that there's some legitimate like controversy or legitimate like differences of opinion, rather than it just being something that some bigots insisted on and now a lot of people are confused about.
Okay, so I feel you on that. So I guess what I would say to that is there is no legitimate controversy. Let me be clear, right? There is no legitimate controversy for me around people being able to be called and named whomever it is that they choose to be named or called. And then perhaps I should have started with that. I appreciate that. But I appreciate the question.
I appreciate the discussion and that we're able to.
Yes. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Letta, for being with us. This has been a wonderful morning. I feel nurtured and inspired, and I feel desire to find a better place in this conversation. And it's an opening to a conversation. And let's find a way to love each other and be neighbors to each other and treat each other like Letta said so beautifully in the address. This is just a marvelous thing. I'm just really proud that this will be on our YouTube channel, available to everybody to watch. It won't overnight get 35,000 hits like Scott Ritter last night did, but to those of us who heard this, it's just of such meaning and worth hearing over and over again. And Letta, I hope we can hear from you again soon. Thank you, everybody who has joined us today. Amar Ahmad on the technical end, and Charlie and Karen also on the technical sound check end. We're still trying to figure this out and how to do it well with elegance, grace, and style. Come see us at the church. We're still sort of slouching our way back from the COVIDian, and we're trying to find a way to safely and gracefully reopen this auditorium and have events and accept people and do good radical trouble that fosters more love, which is what we need. Maybe I'm going to end with a walk around to show you the paintings. Amar, can we do the other? Yes, perfect. We will start with one of my favorites that's not for sale. It's called The Jazz Drummer, from probably the 40s or maybe the 50s, The Jazz Drummer. This is a new one that was just, there was one for sale that sold and it was replaced by this one. I haven't really gotten a chance to look at this. These are pieces that were confiscated by the Nazis, and many others were confiscated and lost. These were returned to the family afterwards. I hope I'm aiming this right. It's my laptop. It's not an iPhone, but just to give you a sense of what's going on. If you look on our YouTube channel, you also see a beautiful concert that we had opening night of the reception for this gallery opening. It was Stan Strickland and Josh Rosen, who were playing piano and saxophone and flute and singing. It was a lovely concert. You can check it out on the YouTube channel. Many more paintings at the other end. Thank you all for joining us today. We shall declare the meeting to be over, and we shall repair to whatever it is that Luis Guzman has prepared us for a beautiful lunch today, to be nourished and to be infinitely sustained. Thank you all. Have a wonderful week. Do good work. Make good trouble. Meeting at the building soon be over. Amen. 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 Hallelujah. Like Lady Smith Black Mambazo.